I didn't do so well with girls. And, I desperately wanted their companionship. I didn't know if I wanted a girlfriend or if it was just sex or anything. I just was attracted.
Gene Simmons built a legendary image as the demon of the rock band Kiss, who publicly claimed he slept with over 4,800 women, turned his sexual encounters into a massive Polaroid photo collection, and eventually built a billion-dollar business empire through endless merchandise. However, behind his famous face makeup and his fire-breathing stage performances, he hides a long history of severe sexual, moral, family, business, and political scandals that have hurt many people. Even in the year 2025, at over 70 years old, Gene continues to face new troubles, which include making creepy comments about women on the television show Dancing with the Stars, selling incredibly expensive fan experience packages during difficult economic times, accepting an award from Donald Trump after criticizing him for years, and dealing with new legal documents regarding his behavior toward female employees. From a poor Jewish boy escaping the dark shadow of the Holocaust to the sex king of rock and roll, Gene Simmons is finally paying the heavy price for his incredibly wild and selfish reputation. A legacy of sexual controversy. The most significant and troubling part of Gene Simmons's legacy is not found in the music of Kiss, but in his documented behavior towards women. This behavior was shaped by a mindset that treated women not as partners, but as trophies to be collected, an attitude that led to public infidelity, serious legal challenges, and deep fractures within his own family. For decades, Gene Simmons did not just have sex. He systematically cataloged his encounters. To prove his claim of sleeping with roughly 4,800 women, he established a strict ritual where each woman he spent the night with was required to have her picture taken with a Polaroid camera while holding his hotel room key, which served as undeniable proof of the meeting. These photographs were not kept as private mementos, but were instead organized into large albums, stored in a secure safe, and frequently shown off to friends and fellow musicians as if they were a collection of prized artifacts. This practice was viewed by many as profoundly disturbing, including Grace Slick, the lead singer of the band Jefferson Airplane, who, after being shown the collection, publicly described it as disgusting. She argued that it was not the action of someone who loved or respected women, but rather that of a pathological collector who dehumanized his partners. This collection of photographs existed as a ticking time bomb in Simmons's life, and it finally exploded in 2011, just before he was set to marry his long-term partner, Shannon Tweed. In a highly dramatic episode of their reality television show, Gene Simmons' Family Jewels, Shannon Tweed discovered the albums after having endured his infidelity for 28 years. In a powerful moment of anger and deep emotional pain, she threw the entire collection into a fire pit and burned it all on camera for the world to see. This act was more than just a television drama. It represented the culmination of decades of suffering and symbolized the destruction of a toxic legacy that Gene had carefully built, exposing the severe cracks in his family's foundation. Long before his relationship with Shannon Tweed, Gene Simmons was involved in one of the most talked-about love scandals of the late 1970s when he was dating the legendary singer and actress Cher between 1979 and 1980. While their relationship was closely followed by the public, Simmons began a secret affair with Cher's best friend, the equally famous singer Diana Ross. The truth was eventually discovered by Cher herself, who was devastated by the dual betrayal from both her partner and her closest friend. The scandal became major news when People magazine published a detailed article about the affair, cementing Simmons's public image as an untrustworthy man who would damage relationships to satisfy his own desires. Cher never forgave him for the betrayal, and the incident remains a significant mark on his personal history. This pattern of infidelity continued throughout his 28-year relationship with Shannon Tweed before their marriage, with their reality show capturing numerous intense arguments about his affairs. The tension reached a breaking point during a live television interview to promote the show, where an emotional Shannon Tweed, unable to contain her frustration any longer, openly called Gene a pig on the air before walking off the set in tears. The moment revealed the manufactured nature of the happy family image they were trying to sell to the public and showed the real pain his actions had caused. Beyond infidelity, Gene Simmons has also faced serious legal accusations of sexual harassment and misconduct. In 2010, a makeup artist named Victoria Jackson filed a lawsuit against him, alleging that while she was applying his makeup at an ESPN studio, Simmons, who was wearing his full The Demon costume, began grinding against her and humping her leg. Simmons's legal team offered a strange defense, claiming that the metal codpiece worn as part of the costume made such an act physically impossible. He then countersued Ms. Jackson, and the case was eventually settled out of court, with the details remaining confidential. A few years later, between 2016 and 2017, a new wave of accusations emerged from female employees at Rock and Brews, a restaurant chain co-founded by Simmons. Several women came forward with allegations of unwanted touching and groping, and these cases were also resolved quietly through private settlements, a common strategy to avoid negative media attention. As recently as 2025, new legal filings have hinted at other incidents involving female staff members, suggesting a persistent pattern of inappropriate behavior. His disrespectful attitude towards women was also evident in his public statements, such as during an interview with the New York Post, where he advised women that their main job was to make yourself look pretty, so that a wealthy man would buy you a house, a comment that drew widespread criticism for being demeaning and old-fashioned. The fractured family behind the camera. The turmoil in Gene Simmons's family life provides a different view of the man, revealing someone whose difficult childhood left him struggling with commitment, and who, in turn, placed a heavy burden on his own children. The image of a perfect family presented on their reality show was merely a thin veneer covering much deeper issues. Gene Simmons and former Playboy model Shannon Tweed first met at the Playboy Mansion in 1983, beginning a relationship that would last for 28 years before they finally married in 2011. Throughout those decades, they had 2 children, Nick and Sophie, yet Gene consistently refused to get married. He often explained his reluctance by citing a fear of commitment that stemmed from being abandoned by his father as a young child in Israel, arguing that he did not want to make a promise he was not sure he could keep. However, many people close to the situation believed the real reason was his desire to continue his unrestrained lifestyle without the formal commitment of marriage. The wedding in 2011 occurred immediately after some of his biggest scandals were exposed on their reality show, including the dramatic burning of his Polaroid collection. This timing led many to speculate that the marriage was less a romantic gesture and more a strategic move to cover up the scandals and save a family that was on the verge of collapsing. Unreleased footage from the show is said to contain private conversations where Gene admitted his deep-seated fears, while Shannon expressed her complete exhaustion from his years of betrayal, with pressure from their children, who wanted a stable family, also playing a major role in his final decision to marry. The pressure of being the son of a world-famous rock star became very public for Nick Simmons in 2010, when he released his own comic book titled Incarnate. Soon after its publication, readers and fans of Japanese manga noticed striking similarities between Nick's work and the hugely popular manga series Bleach by Tite Kubo. Fans created side-by-side comparisons that showed Nick had not only borrowed ideas, but had almost directly copied entire panels, character designs, and dialogue. Facing overwhelming evidence and public backlash, the publisher, Radical Comics, was forced to halt production and recall all copies of the book. Nick Simmons issued an apology, claiming his work was simply an homage to the artists he admired. But this explanation was widely rejected by the community, which saw it as blatant plagiarism. Instead of allowing his son to handle the controversy, Gene Simmons intervened aggressively, going on television to defend Nick and attack the critics, which only made the situation worse by turning a professional issue into a public family drama. The reality show Gene Simmons' Family Jewels, which ran from 2006 to 2012, was promoted as an authentic look into the life of a rock and roll family. But over time, it was increasingly criticized for staging dramatic situations to boost ratings. The frequent arguments over infidelity and the subsequent reconciliations were seen by many as scripted events. As a result, Nick and Sophie were often placed in the spotlight because of their father's behavior, with their personal struggles and teenage years broadcast to the world as entertainment. The wholesome family image the show tried to project ultimately felt hollow and artificial, just another commercial product in the vast Gene Simmons empire. Business, greed, and betraying the spirit of rock. Gene Simmons's aggressive business mentality was not limited to his personal life. It was most evident in how he commercialized the Kiss brand to an extreme degree. For him, anything and everything was for sale, including the very spirit of rock and roll. Under his and Paul Stanley's leadership, the Kiss logo was licensed for use on over 5,000 different products. While many of these were standard merchandise like T-shirts and posters, the list also included bizarre and controversial items such as the Kiss casket coffin, Kiss condoms, and even Kiss-branded toilet paper. This relentless commercialization led many longtime fans and music critics to accuse the band of selling its soul, arguing that they had sacrificed artistic integrity for financial gain. Simmons, however, has always been unapologetic about his business focus, often stating, "I am a businessman. The band is just one of my businesses." This approach reached a peak of absurdity in June 2017, when Gene Simmons filed an application with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office to claim exclusive ownership of the devil horns hand gesture. This gesture is a beloved and universal symbol in rock and metal culture, widely popularized by the legendary singer Ronnie James Dio. Simmons's attempt to trademark it was met with immediate and widespread outrage. Wendy Dio, Ronnie James Dio's widow, called the move disgusting, while musicians and fans across the globe condemned him as an opportunist, trying to steal a symbol that belonged to the entire community. Faced with such intense backlash, Simmons quietly withdrew his application less than 2 weeks later. His focus on profit was on full display again in 2025 with the announcement of the Ultimate Gene Simmons Experience package for his solo tour. Priced at an astonishing $12,495, the package allowed a fan to be a roadie for a day, have a backstage meal with Gene, be introduced by him on stage, and receive a signed bass guitar. In a time of global economic uncertainty, this price tag was widely criticized as greedy and tone-deaf, as it turned the fan experience into a luxury item available only to the extremely wealthy. Although the packages reportedly sold out, they sparked a major debate about the relationship between artists and their fans. This pricing strategy extended to his solo tour, where high ticket prices of over $500 for good seats led to poor sales, resulting in the cancellation of several shows. In response, Simmons arrogantly claimed that touring solo was easier because he did not need Kiss's massive stage setup, a statement seen by many as an excuse for his inability to draw a crowd. Politics, public gaffes, and internal band conflict. Gene Simmons's tendency for contradiction and controversy also extended into his political views and public appearances. He became known for shifting his positions and making shocking comments that called his sincerity into question. For years, Simmons was a vocal critic of Donald Trump, once calling the former president abhorrent and comparing his political rise to cockroaches crawling out of the walls. This established him as a firm opponent of Trump. However, the public was stunned on August 13, 2025, when Kiss, with Simmons present, traveled to Washington, D.C. to accept the prestigious Kennedy Center honors from President Donald Trump himself. This action led to a storm of criticism, with many accusing Simmons of being a hypocrite who abandoned his principles for a photo opportunity and an award. Social media erupted with memes and angry comments mocking his sudden change of heart. In 2024, Simmons made a guest appearance as a judge on Dancing with the Stars, which quickly turned into a public relations disaster. Throughout the show, he made a series of comments that viewers found creepy and unprofessional, particularly towards the female dancers. He focused almost exclusively on their physical appearance, saying things like, "My glasses are fogging up from your hotness," and his scoring seemed to be based on physical attraction rather than dancing skill. The public reaction was swift and harsh, with viewers calling him a gross uncle and demanding an apology from the network. Simmons remained defiant, later issuing a statement that said, "I stand by every word," which only fueled the public's anger. This massive ego was also a primary source of conflict within Kiss itself. He and Paul Stanley were often accused of treating the other original members, drummer Peter Criss and guitarist Ace Frehley, like hired employees rather than equal partners. Disputes over contracts and money were constant, eventually leading to the dismissal of both Criss and Frehley, officially for their struggles with substance abuse. While their issues were real, the cold, business-first manner in which Simmons and Stanley handled the situation was heavily criticized. His ego also drove creative decisions, like his insistence on defending the band's critically panned 1978 film, Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park, and was a source of internal jealousy when his 1978 solo album outsold those of his bandmates. In the end, Gene Simmons remains a living paradox. He rose from the poverty of an immigrant child whose family was scarred by the Holocaust to become a symbol of the American dream, using his immense ambition to build a cultural icon and a financial empire. Yet that same ambition, when combined with unchecked greed, an enormous ego, and a lack of sexual self-control, fueled decades of controversy and left a trail of damaged relationships. Today, in an era defined by the #MeToo movement and the intense scrutiny of social media, the legacy of Gene Simmons is being fundamentally reevaluated. While his net worth is estimated to be over $400 million, his celebrated reputation as a rock god and business genius is now being overshadowed by a history of misconduct and disrespect. The central question that remains is whether his later-in-life transformation, marked by burning his Polaroids and finally getting married, was a genuine change of heart or simply a new mask, a calculated public relations strategy to survive in a world that no longer tolerates his old behavior. While the answer may never be fully clear, the scars he left on the lives of others and on his own complicated legacy are permanent.